Hi everyone, you guys ready for pumpkin season? So I saw this technique online to make pumpkins from dough, and I decided to apply that to my milk bread recipe, only I infused it with pumpkin on the outside as well as a pumpkin cream cheese filling on the inside. So I can't wait to show you guys this recipe. So as with any milk bread recipe, it starts off with a cooked roux of sorts first. So what I have is 3 tablespoons of bread flour along with 2/3 of a cup of water. Recipe is going to be down below. And then I'm going to put in 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree and just mix all of that together so that it doesn't have any lumps before putting it over the stove. Now you're going to cook the mixture over medium to medium high heat for 2 minutes up until it thickens. And this kind of like pre-cooked flour mixture really helps to soften up the milk bread dough. So as you wait for that to come to room temperature, you want to start activating the yeast because this is a bread recipe. So I have 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dried yeast, and then to that I'm going to add 1/2 cup of room temperature or slightly warmed coconut milk, and then 1 tablespoon of the sugar that I've just taken out from what I will eventually be adding to the rest of the bread. And because the coconut milk is a little bit thick, you want to make sure that everything is good and dissolved before setting it aside for 10 minutes. So this is my dry mix. Recipe is down below, but I have 3 cups of bread flour, some sugar, some salt, baking powder, and then 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin spice, which will warm this bread up and turn it all nice and holiday tasting. You can see how nice and activated that yeast was. So really important, before you add in the pumpkin mixture, make sure that it is at room temperature, because anything that is too hot is going to kill off the yeast and you're not really going to get any of those nice bubbles that will be forming later. So I'm just gonna mix that mixture on a dough hook until it is all homogenized before adding in that flour mixture. And I'm doing it 1/2 at a time just so that I don't over incorporate and I can see whether it needs a little bit more flour or a little bit less flour. So I let the machine run for about 8 minutes, and I want to show you, just like the original milk bread recipe, the stage that the dough should be at right now. Because if you don't work with dough a lot, you might not know this, but as you stretch this, you can see it has some stretch, but it tears quite easily, quite quickly. So this is the stage that you want to be at now, and I want you to turn the mixer back on right around medium and then add 2 tablespoons of vegan butter and continue mixing for another 8 minutes. So after 8 minutes, this is the stage that you want it to be, and it's a nice smooth dough ball, and it all comes from the gluten being worked. The more that it is kneaded, the more strong the bonds are and the less it will tear. So this is a test that bakers use on this type of bread, but it's a window pane test, and it's just how thinly you can stretch the dough without it breaking. And the window pane effect is just, it's sort of like you can get it so thin that you can actually see through it, and still, the gluten bonds do not break because it's been worked and kneaded properly. So I've oiled that bowl a bit, but set that aside for 1 to 2 hours until it doubles in size. So meanwhile, we'll be working on that yummy pumpkin filling. So I have 6 ounces of vegan cream cheese. It's up to you what brand you'll be using. To that, I will be adding 2 tablespoons of coconut milk, 2 tablespoons of the canned pureed pumpkin, and then 2 tablespoons of sugar or a sugar substitute. Now, because it's vegan cream cheese, sometimes it can get quite liquidy when you mix it with a liquid, and that's totally okay. This will end up looking like pancake batter afterwards, but when you stick it back into the refrigerator for a couple of hours, it will firm up into a nice creamy frosting. It may have proved a little bit longer than I wanted, so now I'm just gonna gently push out all of the air and then give it a good knead for right around 2 minutes, and then divide this into 8 equal pieces. Okay, so now for the fun part, it's time to turn these guys into pumpkins. So I've taken a really long piece of string. I definitely recommend using butcher's twine, and you kind of do it like a present first. You divide up the ball into 4, and then every time that you twist, you divide it one more time up until you divide that dough ball into 8 equal pieces. And I actually find that sometimes if the pieces are not too even, it actually makes it look more like a pumpkin. So don't worry if you mess up just a bit. Alrighty, that was a long time without me, so let them sit for 30 minutes so that they can have their last proof, and then afterwards I have a mixture of 1 tablespoon of vegan butter along with 1 tablespoon of demeurera sugar, and the sugar is going to help this bread brown and get a nice color. So just a nice thin layer on that, and then this goes into the oven 350 Fahrenheit for right around 25 minutes or so, and rotate them in between, and if they do get a little too brown, just put a sheet of tin foil on top. Oh my gosh, can we eat already? So time to loosen the strings, and it shouldn't be too difficult, but sometimes the bread will have baked up around it. So I actually find it's really useful to take a knife sometimes and to aid the string along. So this is a pastry tip, and by tip I mean advice. You want to pre-drill the hole because inside is quite dense with bread. You want to kind of make a cavity before you put in the cream, and that's just going to make everything a whole lot easier. You can use walnuts or almonds for this, but gosh, are they pretty. They are really good. Like, the milk bread is just slightly sweet with that little bit of pumpkin spice, and I love like a cream cheese filling, but this one also has a little bit of pumpkin in it, so it's a little bit mellow. And I am going to recommend that if you guys wanted to maybe prepare this early for a dinner or a dinner party or something, do not fill them until probably the last minute, just to make sure that everything is nice and fresh. Anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed that recipe. I know it was a little bit long, but I did want it to be really special for like the holidays and Halloween and autumn, and so that you can, entertain all of your guests with this. As usual, if you want to see more recipes like this, remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you all again next time. Bye!